Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the...
Hi, I'm Riley. I am an intersex trans woman, and to talk about that, I'm going to have to get into a little bit of detail about uncomfortable subject matter like genitalia, and if you're uncomfortable with that, you might want to just hit the back button. 3, 2, 1, okay. Okay, so what does it mean to be an intersex trans woman? Basically, I was assigned male at birth because of male-appearing genitalia, but it wasn't normal. It didn't develop the same as a traditional man. As I went into puberty, I developed more like a standard trans woman would when getting hormones naturally. I just developed genitalia similar to how a trans woman's genitalia would look like, and I don't know how much detail to get into there, but it's non-standard, and secondary sexual characteristics similar to the traditional female girl. Soft skin, breasts, very fine light body hair, and sulfuric sweat that smells like standard girls. Basically, the standard is that the men would smell like cheese and women would smell like onions, and I'd smell like onions.
Just because I look like a man doesn't mean I have to smell like one.
Well, myself, I kind of like that corn chip smell.
Very androgynous, middle of the road. And through it all, despite the androgyny, I was a girl. In my identity, I was a girl. I believed that the feminine state was like intrinsically better, not in like an objective analysis of these people are superior, but just in my own recognition, the idea that that was the ideal state to be in. And eventually I was able to transition, and in October 2022 got a vaginoplasty. The first stage is called the Zero-Depth Vaginoplasty, which is just the vulva, just the front part, the outside superficial appearance. And then the second stage is the colovaginoplasty, that takes a few inches from the colon to form the vaginal canal. So I had the first stage in October 2022, and I'm going to have the second stage, if all goes well, next year, in 2024. And this is my little story of how that happened.
Young girls pick them, everyone when...
So this flag over here is the intersex pride flag. I don't have the trans pride flag because I honestly identify more with intersex, because I wasn't like dyadic, it's what it's called when you have someone who isn't intersex. I wasn't the real traditional man figure who in their head is female. For me, I was androgynous, and I am trans because I was identified as a male at birth, but that wasn't how I developed naturally through puberty. My natural pubescent development was fundamentally androgynous. I'm somewhere in the middle of the road. The exact diagnosis is unknown. It's registered as intersex. They don't know the exact variant. To be able to tell for sure would require a genetic test that could cost me something like $4,000. Obviously, I don't really want to do that right now, if ever. Anyway, it isn't really necessary from a medical standpoint. Based on the symptoms, I suspect, and my doctors agree, that it is probably either de la Chapelle syndrome, which is where you have two X chromosomes but also an attached SRY gene that results in male development. Or it could be Klinefelter syndrome, which is more common but doesn't quite match up from what I've read from it. That would be 2 X chromosomes and a Y chromosome to make more chromosomes than is usually found in a human. And that has its problems. I know it is a chromosomal disorder because I have these deformities of my pinkies. The I don't know, it's like clinodactyly or something like that. I think that the concept of being intersex as opposed to dyadic trans might be a little easier for cis people to grasp, because there is the very overt development of androgyny. However, I personally believe that dyadic trans people are also intersex. It's just that their androgyny doesn't develop like on their genitals or any secondary sex characteristics. It manifests purely in the brain, and that's why they have a different gender identity, because they're intersex, and the development is just, it's so deeply beneath the surface that it has to be self-reported.
When will they ever learn?
So most American trans women get penile inversion vaginoplasty. That's the penis is split and inverted, and that makes up the vaginal canal. But because I have microgenitalia, or I had microgenitalia, yay, and that wasn't an option, I did what is common for Thai trans women, which is the colovaginoplasty, using a bit of the colon to create the vaginal canal. In America, at least, this is separated into 2 separate surgeries. So the doctor who treated me is Dr. Jeffrey Stiller in Spokane, Washington. He has a specific clinic, Stiller Aesthetics, that is cosmetic surgery and also gender-affirmation surgery for trans people. It's based in both Spokane and Idaho. The way that the trip works is that you go to Spokane, or Idaho, I guess, and you stay there a while with a caregiver, do the surgery, and then you hang out in Spokane for a while with the caregiver, so that you can heal and be close at hand if something goes wrong and Stiller Aesthetics needs to jump in to fix something. I went to Spokane with my mother, Kelly.
When will they ever learn?
So originally I was going to get the surgery done in January 2022, but then Governor Inslee stepped in and said that all non-life-threatening surgeries had to be postponed because of COVID.
Because emergency rooms are so busy right now, the governor is telling hospitals to stop doing non-urgent procedures for the next 4 weeks.
We do believe we are in for several weeks of very hard slogging in Washington State, where all of us have to pitch in together.
And I was in a bit of a depression after that. My surgery was rescheduled for October 14th, and I really couldn't make myself get into the state of mind where I was sure that was happening. I was just waiting for Inslee to make another announcement. Oh, COVID isn't ending. So, but eventually it seems like, hey, it was happening. I had some plans for October, but I was like, actually, I'm not going to be able to do them because I'm finally doing this thing, yay! And so I started prepping for the trip. This room was just a big mess, so I started cleaning up the mess so that when I got back home, I would be able to walk around with relative ease. Mom and I started gathering up all the supplies that we would take. It made this big pile. I started gathering things in a feminine bag. We're concerned that there would be blood and stuff during the recovery period. So I didn't want to take along any plushies that I already had, might get ruined. So we got a disposable plushie, like a new thing that it didn't matter if it got wrecked. A gnome with a hat that looks like a mermaid's tail. Mermaids being kind of a trans girl thing because they're a woman from the waist up, and that's all that matters. Below the waist is just something weird.
What would I pay to spend a day warm on the sand?
And of course, in the movie The Little Mermaid, she wants to be part of that world, the world represented by her top half. I gathered up some DVDs because it was just Mom and I could focus on some mother-daughter chick flick kind of stuff.
Where have all the young girls gone?
October 12th was the travel day. We stuffed Mom's CRV full of supplies, and we made all these jokes about the Beverly Hillbillies. You know, we loaded up the truck and we moved to Spokane. Spokane, that is. Partway through, we stopped at this truck stop that was a Subway, so we could get sandwiches and had a big selection of snacks. But the people there were not friendly. I definitely got a sense it was because Mom and I both wore masks, and these people were like super conservative and made it a political point to not mask. Yeah, they were just kind of death glary about us. Yeah, not a big fan of that. In my area, the outer Seattle area, it seems like even the conservatives are more libertarian. They're okay if you mask, but they don't. But closer to Spokane, it seems like everyone's a little more fiercely. It's made part of the culture war. Yeah, I didn't like that. Seems to me that if you're gonna be aggressive towards people who wear the barest liberal marker of a mask, they're not gonna be too friendly to LGBT folk. There was one trucker who was nice, though. He was also the only person there who wasn't white. Couldn't get out of there fast enough. Finally, we arrived at Spokane and checked into the local Fairfield Inn and set to work unloading our supplies into the little room we had. After a few trips unloading the car, we went to the very convenient little coffee shop, Perkins, and had some dinner. People in Spokane come off as a bit conservative, but not far right, per se. There's definitely some more conservative elements, like someone left little stickers saying that the economy was Biden's fault. It's a lot more complicated than that. And on the other hand, there's this interesting, don't tread on me, Gadsden flag in the shape of a vagina. So it's don't tread on women's reproductive rights, like a mural in Spokane. So yeah, it's definitely got its conservative elements, but it's also got its progressive elements. Seems more libertarian than that truck stop. And I liked that the waitress was nice. Like she was really nice. The menu was a little narrowly focused on traditionally American food, but there's this teriyaki chicken dish that I ended up liking. I was trying to avoid binding kinds of foods, so I pushed the rice to the side and just had the meat. At the end of the day, I easily slept on the soft mattress and listened to music.
Long time passing.
On October 13th, there were 2 important visits to the Deaconess Hospital, one to register, and 1 pre-op appointment at the on-site Stiller Aesthetics. Dr. Stiller performs a lot of surgeries, and he doesn't like to commit to specific times prior to very close to surgery. So we wouldn't learn the actual time of the surgery or when to show up to the hospital until that pre-op appointment. After taking advantage of the complimentary breakfast buffet at the hotel, we went to register at the hospital and check out where we needed to go for the later appointments. I was pleasantly surprised to see a poster telling people not to sexually harass the staff. As a feminist, I was quite pleased. I think that a few years ago, that kind of thing just wouldn't happen. But now this is the age of #MeToo and cosplay is not consent. This is an age where people will recognize the importance of that kind of stuff. The woman who got me registered into the system was nice enough, but she kept misgendering me. I would think that people at this kind of hospital with gender affirmation surgeries going on would be better trained, but I would be disappointed. This is a time where anxious patients need to be put at ease, not on guard with misgendering, and it's just kind of disrespectful treatment. Disappointing. Before leaving, I was taken into a room to have my blood drawn. Unfortunately, this was just after the trip with that truck stop, and I very purposefully didn't drink very much so that we wouldn't have to make another stop, and as a result, it was hard to get blood from my veins, and the nurse, who seemed a little inexperienced, ended up stabbing me a few times. Not fun. She also, left this bruise on my hand that just didn't go away for several days. This would be foreshadowing to how painful the whole experience would be.
Okay, day 2 of the trip. Took a trip to the Deaconess Hospital to register for the surgery and get blood drawn for labs.
We walked around to locate Stiller Aesthetics, which is kind of harder to find than you might expect. The maps that we were given from the Stiller Aesthetics website weren't very helpful. Fortunately, a nice UPS delivery man helped us find the place. We went back to the room and watched TV, mostly Food Network competitions, which would be the primary thing that we would end up watching throughout the trip, because it's very neutral, it's something that we can both watch. Once enough time had passed, we went to Stiller Aesthetics for the pre-op appointment. The parking lot was kind of confusing. A lot of the spaces looked like they were reserved for hospital staff, so we ended up driving around a lot. Fortunately, we found where the Stiller Aesthetic parking is. It's like a small little lot, but fortunately someone had driven away and freed up a space, and we were able to drive inside. We then walked down to the hospital building, walked down a hallway, and found Stiller Aesthetics. After several interactions with the Stiller Aesthetic staff through email, I was kind of giddy to encounter it in person. It's like Disneyland as an adult. There's that giddy anticipation, and then it's there. Yay! I was pleasantly surprised to see other queer people in the room, some obvious trans people, some non-binary people. There's rainbows and other LGBT stuff all around the room. There's this plaque that shows that Dr. Stiller is honored by the LGBT community, and I like that. I like that he's not just a cosmetic surgery guy who sometimes does transgender surgeries on the side. I'm sure he makes most of his money doing the plastic surgery, but he is this valued contributor to the trans community for his gender affirmation surgeries. That's neat. For the appointment, I was taken to an exam room, but didn't have the genitalia examined, which I thought was kind of strange. Dr. Stiller just kind of took my word for it, that it was too small to do the penile inversion, and that I needed to do the colovaginoplasty, and he seemed to have been right to trust my assessment. Okay. We talked to 2 people. One was Haley, who I corresponded with over email. She helped organize the thing. Then Dr. Stiller himself, who is really nice. At the time, I kind of compared him to Santa Claus, which is kind of a strange comparison for someone who's as young as he is. But his bedside manner is so good that it just reminded me of this good Santa Claus portrayal, like in Ernest Saves Christmas, where he's just the kindest man. He's got the kindly Santa Claus demeanor. And he's got all these, really neat tattoos of, aliens and things. Dr. Stiller cared about making sure that we had all the information we needed. He laid out all the risk factors. It is a major surgery, so there are some issues that can come up. He made sure that I was aware that there could be necrosis, where the clitoris part would just die and there wouldn't be any sensation. He did reassure me that that was a small risk. And I just thought, sex has never really been a priority for me. It's never really been a big interest. And, if I cared, a creative romantic partner could work around it. And then he made me sign documents to make sure that it was completely clear that I knew what I was getting into, that I definitely wanted the thing. With all the fear-mongering surrounding the gender affirmation surgery and trans people in general, there's this idea that no one really knows what they're getting into, that the doctors are just pushing everything. But that's not the case. At least not in my experience, that's not the case. You have to get through the bureaucratic obstructions. Dr. Stiller made sure I knew exactly what the surgery entailed, and he presented these clear points where I understand and consent, sign documents, give verbal consent, make sure I know what the whole thing entails. I had to sign a document specifically saying that I'm aware that the process would make me sterile, and I didn't really care. On the one hand, I think the genitalia I had just was non-functional. It was effectively sterile anyway. Also, I don't get why people care that much about their offspring being genetically related to them. It just feels like racism to me. You're just obeying the selfish gene. Adoption's a thing. Surrogacy? Finally, I got a time for surgery. 11:30 a.m. We were to arrive at the hospital at 9. Things were happening!
Isn't this exciting? Are you excited? Because I'm excited. I've never been so excited.
Mom and I went to Perkins for one last decently sized meal before surgery. We both had these Thanksgiving-style turkey dinners. I avoided the binding materials, just had the protein and vegetables. And I went to sleep feeling like the kid the last night before they go to Disneyland. Yay!
Where have all the young girls gone? Long time ago.
October 14th was surgery day, and before the surgery, there was surgery prep. Now, Stiller Aesthetics had sent this list of instructions, but they seemed a little weird, like they were just kind of cobbled together from different surgeries and didn't really make sense. Clearing up some of the issues with that was one of the things that we discussed with Dr. Stiller. There was a thing about enemas, but fortunately for that surgery, Dr. Stiller no longer does the enemas, so I didn't need to do that. Now, there was the issue of Hibiclens. I needed to take these showers the night before the surgery and the day of the surgery using this extremely caustic soap called Hibiclens that you can get at any drugstore, but is scary strong. Oh my god, it really feels like some kind of weapon. It's bright red like blood, and reminded me of the plutonium and Back to the Future that you have to handle very specifically, very carefully. I really, really wish that I clarified details of this with the doctor, but I didn't really understand how confusing it was before the shower part, or as I think of it, the shower from hell. So the label of this thing says that it can cause chemical burns, permanent blindness, and permanent deafness, and something about don't get it in your mouth, and also don't have it on your skin for more than 15 seconds, and avoid the genital area. Now, the instructions from Dr. Stiller's office said apply it to the genital area specifically and leave it on for 2 minutes. I tried to follow the instructions, but then it just kind of felt like painful, and I was like afraid and tried to like wash it off. It's kind of hard to remove it from the area using a shower with a shower head that doesn't detach. It just sprays straight down from the top. As I was trying to wash the stuff off of my hands, an angled droplet from the shower like hit my hand and then bounced off, and it like went into my face, and I was just terrified of that permanent blindness, permanent whatever, and like very, very carefully washed everything with my eyes closed, and I was just terrified. And then for the shower in the morning, I ended up keeping my glasses on and wearing a mask because I just wanted my whole face protected. I was very, very, very cautious. Oh my gosh. Afterwards, I tried to look up details about that, about the HIPAA like maybe there was some important context that I was missing. So I looked up some videos on YouTube about how to use HIPAA in preparation for surgery, and they were weird. Like,
might be a good idea to wash with this your entire body, all the surface of your body before your surgery. But there is one thing I want to mention that it does say on the back that might be important for you.
Okay, just guess what she's going to say.
So it does say that this chlorhexidine gluconate skin cleanser does cause stains, and if you get some on your clothes, you have to do something very special. Don't just throw them in the washing machine.
Stains! She's talking to us about stains! Wow, that has nothing to do with the warning label. Yikes. I kept the HIPAA bottle on the shelf and kind of refused to touch it. Later, we used a paper towel to pick it up and dispose of it in the trash because we were treating it as a dangerous chemical.
Where have all the young girls gone?
Okay, well, surgery day. Once I was done with the shower from hell, I was feeling pretty confident. I had my fingers crossed, yeah! I insisted on going early, so we headed out at 8. Arrived early at the Deaconess Hospital, checked in, and Mom was saying that because we came so early, they wouldn't be ready for us, but they were, pretty much. And the receptionist, she gendered me correctly. Yeah, good on her. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm smiling under the mask there. But you can tell I'm kind of weary. You know, I've spent a lot of time with gender dysphoria, and, that wears on a person. And then I was taken into another room for surgery prep. I asked for them to allow Mom into the room with me for as long as possible. And they agreed. So she helped me prepare, which involved cleaning my body with these disposable washcloths that were treated with a chemical that, having read the back label of HIPAA, I could recognize as the stuff that HIPAA is made of. So that is like another HIPAA treatment, and it's like much better because it is these disposable washcloths. You don't have to worry about stuff bouncing around and you can fairly easily dispose of it. The weird thing is that Deaconess previously had people use these HIPAA cloths on their genital region, and they had that crossed out. Like, that's no longer the protocol. They no longer want you to do that on the genitals. So what's up with those instructions? Anyway, I got into one of those hospital gowns with no butt, and Mom helped me put it on and climbed into this bed, this hospital gurney thing, and the nurse pumped it full of air, like warm air, and kind of reminded me of the Abyss where they have the tank that's filled with that oxygenated liquid. Felt very warm and nice. Kind of weird, but I had this intravenous drip for hydration. Occasionally, I'd need to call the nurse to walked into the restroom. There's this shared communal restroom between that, whatever you call it, and the next one over. And I was continuously worried about running into some confused old man trying to use the restroom. But fortunately, no issue. Nurse helped me out. While I was clear-headed, I had to give consent twice. People don't, get that there's so many checks to make sure that people are fully aware of what's going on and can fully consent, but there really are all these checks here. First, to sign a document, and then verbal consent. While clear-headed, I know what's going on. Yeah. The doctor had me state exactly what the procedure was before he'd go through with it. Once consent was established, things started to get moving. Nurses came in and made all these adjustments, asked me a bunch of boring technical questions. I started to get excited. Things are finally moving. I was also kind of anxious because it started to really set in okay, this is serious. This is serious stuff is happening, and they're actually concerned that something could go wrong, so they're asking these very technical, specific questions about my habits, allergies, all those. In the weeks leading up to this, I kind of was contemplating my own mortality, and you're gonna die at some point, and people die in routine surgeries all the time. Internet celebrity Monty Oum died like that. It was just a routine surgery, but he happened to have an allergic reaction to something, and he died. And he was this great talent, but then he just died. That's how it happens sometimes. So, yeah, I wanted the vaginoplasty, and I was willing to risk death. And I was just thinking, if I do die, will I feel satisfied? Is this a good way to go? I appreciated the turkey dinner the night before as a final meal, perhaps, in case I did die. But that wasn't the last memory. The last thing that I would experience is all these nurses making the boring technical checks. Is that really what you want your last moment to be like? And then I was thinking about it, and it was it's not romantic exactly, but there is a romance in how these are professionals who are looking out for a patient's well-being. They are doing their best to make their patients' lives better. And if you did die in that kind of moment, it would be it would honestly be the best kind of moment, because you'd be in the hands of people who genuinely care and are going to their fullest extent that they can to protect you, to push back the darkness. If the darkness won in that case, yes, it would be a good death. So it's surgery day. The nurses came, got me prepped. Soon I'm about to go in for surgery. Hoping that'll all go well, but I have a lot of hope that things will a little overwhelming. Just trust that human beings taking care of each other, and just good communal sense, and anticipation of swift recovery, and all goes well, successful bottom surgery. I could accept my mortality. The anesthesiologist wheeled me out of the room, and it was the first time I had to go past where Mom was allowed to go. But the anesthesiologist was a nice guy. I answered his questions. He did something to what I was getting through the intravenous thing, and I went out like a light. I didn't even register falling asleep. Probably the best way to do that. And then I woke up. We worked out, it was essentially 2:30 to 3:30 when I woke up. I was very, very groggy. It kind of reminded me of coming out of hypnotic trance, and having some experience with that, I applied the methods one would use to get out of trance, as like breathing and wiggling the toes, like wiggling the fingers, like very slowly coming back to reality. Not quite the same because this was drug-induced. It was like a little more sluggish than hypnotic trance, where it's just a deep relaxation technique. But the principle is largely the same. There is a nurse who was a very feminine man. Even if he's not a member of the gay community, he's at least androgynous, and I can relate. And I appreciated being led out of that by someone like me. And, he gave me ice chips at first, and then some ginger ale and crackers. In retrospect, graham crackers, probably not the best idea because it kind of sucked the moisture right out of my mouth, but I was like slowly building up my strength. It hit me like just the profoundness of like, it was just like such a wonderful transition. Like knowing that it had happened, that the vaginoplasty had happened, even though I like wasn't able to directly examine things, like I could tell that it had happened, and I was just so happy, like just waves of gender euphoria, which is honestly just an absence of gender dysphoria. Just feeling happy for having a body that matches up with your gender identity. I just felt so good. I imagine there's morphine or whatever that was kind of helping me. There was lots of pain otherwise, but it's just like a great spiritual sensation of being made whole, and I just felt so good. I very slowly regained enough energy to move to such an extent that the hospital could discharge me around 6 p.m. Mom helped me into the car and drove to a pharmacy where she could pick up the meds that I would need, let me to sit in the car, and I just sat in the parking garage and truly appreciated how wonderful I felt.
It's just on my way home from the hospital. Everything seems to be a complete success. I'm a little groggy right now, really dehydrated because of how they had me prepped, but holy crap, suddenly like everything is better, like just this overwhelming sense of spiritual wellness in a way that I just have never like really had, because there's always the constant dysphoria from the being having the wrong genitalia. So now the bottom surgery is just like it's corrected stuff, and like I haven't like directly examined it yet because of all the dressings, but I trust that things were done well, and holy crap, everything is wow, so much better. Like I just overwhelmingly feel better.
Though I still like struggle with depression a bit, I truly had such a burden lifted from me that it's been so much better since then. Oh my gosh.
When will they ever learn?
Recovery from surgery was so profound, it changed my shirt. Because of the drugs in my system at the time and the general monotony, the first few days after surgery are a bit of a blur.
So this would be a good pillow.
I rested in bed with my gnome and a childhood blanket with Daffy Duck. I soon figured out that I could use the gnome to hold a charging cable in place. I lay in bed, had some soup, and just zoned out for the next few days. Okay, day after surgery. It's really hard to walk around, but, getting some good rest here in bed. Got a tray that can help me access things like laptop, and got this pillow in the back that helps me sit up, and have a doctor appointment through telephone in a few hours. Things are basically going well, still in recovery, but I expect to recover well. In theory, the plan was that I would work on my creative writing projects while in bed. In actuality, I mostly just went on Facebook and Twitter and used Duolingo on my phone to practice some basic Japanese.
I have a lot of time to just sit and rest and listen to things. In theory, I wanted to listen to a lot of video essays. I would just plug in, Paparina's playlists of Nickelodeon documentaries and just soak it all in. In actuality, I just put on songs and then relax, empty my mind, just relax. Been listening to The Wallflowers, the Tragically Hip, and Marlene Dietrich, Greatest Generation film star, queer icon, defied the Nazis, all around great person. She does this really sad, lovely music. Easy to just turn off your brain, rest, listen. And that's what life is currently, just turn off your brain, relax, because not much else to do. Like the day after I got out of surgery, I had this very vivid hallucination, I believe drug-induced from the stuff they had me on to put me out during surgery. Like a day after, I had this vivid hallucination when Mom was watching TV. I decided to close my eyes and rest for a bit, listening to music, and then had what was kind of like a very vivid dream, but I'm gonna call it hallucination because I wasn't asleep. I was still perceiving that the TV was on and Mom was there, but when I closed my eyes, I could see these symbolic constructs to resolve conflicts that I was having. I think of it as like a deep dive into my subconscious. I was on the hospital bed and being moved around through different rooms that I think represented different conflicts in my head. And at one point it was like I was judged by the gods and deemed worthy to move on, and was able to enter the feminine realm, and I was kind of let in and allowed to be a good feminine woman who could appreciate female beauty without being restrained by masculinity. And I think that's like what I needed to let go of a few anxieties. I think it felt very spiritual at the time, but whether that was like spirituality or just drug-induced dive into the subconscious, I think it helped resolve a few things. I feel better for having gone through the experience. I soon encountered some strange body pains. Now, I totally liked the fact that I even was in a position to have the strange pains, but nevertheless, it was strange. New anatomy. So, I don't know, it felt like being in some kind of body horror fantasy thing. Not nearly as bad as gender dysphoria, but
It wasn't totally pleasant, and made me want to kind of pursue some trans man artwork. Trans men tend to have like a real focus on body horror. Well, trans women tend to focus on the spiritual. I want to emphasize, my situation was not horrific. That said, it was strange and painful, and fell into the general category of strange body experiences found in the body horror genre. Initially, the crotch area was completely covered with dressings, and I couldn't see the details, but I could see that it was smooth. I could tell that the penis wasn't there, and that was elating. Like, whenever the penis was there, whenever I saw some kind of sign of it, it was jarring. Like, my subconscious image for my body does not have that, so it caused that dissonance, the gender dysphoria. Even if it would turn out that I'd be like Barbie doll smooth, I'm sure I would have been happier than just living with a penis. Of course, there was also the issue of the catheter. I had to have this like tube coming out of me and having that taped to my leg and then going down to this pee bag that needed to be by my side at all times, and needed to empty that out periodically. Yeah, fun. And the tape that secured the tube to the leg, it chafed something awful. Both the tape itself and also the way it kind of pushed the tube down into my skin very firmly in place. You could handle that for like a day, but it was on there for multiple days, and it got obnoxious fast. Mom helped me apply a skin ointment to the outside of where the tape was. Couldn't affect what was under the tape, though, so it was only so effective. I have to hold the catheter the pee bag thing at my right because of how the tube works, and just carefully walking around. Feet are a little wobbly. Yeah, I can feel the dressings pulling as I'm walking around. Yeah, kind of feel like a little kid just learning to walk. Legs are kind of weak. Have to waddle, kind of have the dressings between my legs. Makes me kind of move like a little kid with a diaper or whatever, just back and forth, just waddling, moving. I also needed to sit on a lot of padding. Lean down and sit down carefully. Have to put all the focus on the weight on my hip, not the butt, because even though the butt is usually used to provide support, I think the labia majora is just so sore right now that sitting normally, weight down on the butt, causes the bruising sensation from the labia majora, and that is so painful right now. So doing a lot of resting on the hip, not on the butt, and lying down at an angle. There are some concerns about me losing weight too fast after surgery. So it was like the rare opportunity to eat fattening foods for one's health. I definitely didn't lose any weight. Yeah, we brought a ton of food with us, lots of snacks, lots of things that would appeal to certain dietary requirements. We weren't entirely sure what to expect. Lots of things that wouldn't bind. Bananas do not work as a binder for me, so good to eat something that's like a little sweet, a little soft. And then, of course, there was the complimentary breakfast buffet at the hotel. Gender-affirming utensils, These are light pink, not entirely sure if the camera registers this. Now, the way that the dressings were maintained had anchoring bandages rising up onto my chest and kind of constricting. So I wasn't tempted to overeat, which was definitely a good thing at the time. I shouldn't have pushed it, so the constriction in that case was a good thing. One thing that stands out about the recovery process is taking pills. Just continuously taking pills throughout the day, throughout the next day, and the next, just pills, pills, pills. I had like 8 different medications, multiple pills for each. In the case of estrogen, it's the tablet underneath the tongue, but still, lots of meds. Let's look at what I had to take. Ibuprofen, mild painkiller, oxycodone, extreme painkiller, sulfamethoxazole, an antibiotic, gabapentin, a nerve-based painkiller, Tylenol, another mild painkiller, Advil, yet another mild painkiller, and Heal Fast, a heavy-duty vitamin, plus estradiol, estrogen, when that was allowed. So WPATH, which is the organization that's responsible for protocols surrounding transgender transition, previously didn't want trans women to be taking estrogen during the process of the surgery because of some concerns about blood clotting, I think. And then they determined, like, very shortly before I was going to do the surgery that actually that's not a thing that's likely to happen, so trans women can continue taking estrogen. I wasn't able to get the okay to do so before the surgery, so I had to quit taking estrogen. But shortly after surgery, I was able to get an okay to resume taking estrogen. And yeah, was able to do that, which actually just made things so much better. Like, I was on cloud 9 to begin with, and then estrogen just, knits my brain back together. Brilliant. So yeah, I was taking my estrogen from my Baphomet pill box. Baphomet being an early Christian attempt to demonize Islam through implying that Allah was a hideous intersex being. Your mileage may vary on how respectful it is to Muslim people. I think if you're reclaiming it and not saying that Allah is this thing, fine. Though obviously I'm not Muslim. And as an intersex person, I think that I have the right to reclaim it. So yeah, pills, pills, pills. Then the estrogen and icing. Because of the swelling issue, I had to ice the genitalia every other 20 minutes. Like 20 minutes icing, 20 minutes not icing, 20 minutes icing, 20 minutes off, 20 minutes on, etc. Repeat ad nauseum. Mom had to go refill the ice a lot, so just a continuous routine. And then I had to practice walking. Like, I kind of had to relearn it like I was a little kid. My legs didn't move quite the same way, and I was just super weak. So I had to practice walking back and forth across the room a few times, and then going to bed. There was such monotony and relative weakness that it was hard not to get grouchy. Fortunately, this didn't last long, but, you're kind of like a bedridden lump. Hard not to get a little grouchy about it. But, you just turn on the music, try to zone out. So Mom and I watched some DVDs. I listened to music, read through Twitter. When I felt well enough, I read books. I was particularly into this book on the Japanese storytelling traditions of ghost stories. And I ran across this interesting little bit that seems to talk about a transgender story. It involves magic, but it seems like a fictionalization of how ancient Japan would have observed trans women transitioning as best they could in that environment. Kind of felt like a spiritual connection to trans ancestor, not by blood obviously, but by so a spiritual connection through being trans. It's like, hi, Trans Obasan. Doing the same thing. Day 4 of recovery, I had a scare where I discovered that the pee bag was wet, like there was maybe a leak. And I did my best to try to figure out where the leak could be. Didn't find one, but kind of scary. Dried off the thing, kept an eye on it. Next day, same problem. Just, dry it off. It was just like hold out until the doctor can remove it. And so day 6, they removed the catheter and exposed the genitalia, and they had a mirror, and I got to see it for the first time, and it was amazing. Just like...
Okay, so October 20th, 2022, just had the first gynecological exam, basically, and saw the genitalia for the first time. Just, my goodness, so happy. Just waves of gender euphoria. Oh my god, I can barely comprehend. And the catheter just came out, lots of painful stuff, so like emotions are running rampant, and got feeling kind of hate because of the oxycodone plus the emotions, but just feeling so good right now. I've never felt this good. Basically, even though it's like really painful and in some ways and I'm numb and feeling faint, but I've never felt this good. It's amazing. I really couldn't do much more than just thank the doctor, and oh my goodness.
I never really, thought about what it should look like. I only got the sense that the penis shouldn't be there, and if not that, it had to be the other thing, right? But I hadn't really thought about it, but then seeing it, I'm kind of not a sexual person. I don't look at people naked or whatever. I don't care that much about genitalia, and so I hadn't really looked at female genitalia at all past some basic anatomy stuff, so I wasn't even really expecting anything. What I was presented with matched something deep inside of me, like a very deep genetic understanding of how I should look, and there was just such elation from that. Oh my god. And less good, but good that they caught it at least. When they removed the catheter, removed the tape, and that tube, turned out that the tube was digging into my skin such that it kind of wore a hole in it, and so it was pus that was leaking down the tube, and that's why the bag was wet. Ugh. Fortunately, applied some ointment to that, healed right up. There's some concern about my ability to hold it in the middle of the night, so we're just kind of assuming that there could be a problem, so we've got this absorbent pad, just in case I wet the bed in the middle of the night. It would mostly be absorbed by the pad. We're using our own sheets and have actually moved a pad underneath the sheets just in case something happens. Then there's a whole new adventure of learning how to use the new female configuration to use the bathroom, and really had to relearn urination from the ground up. With the male configuration, it's kind of like you squeeze the muscles to force the liquid out through the penis, and for the female configuration, you just relax all the muscles so that it can just drain out of the urethra or whatever. So it's basically the difference between squeezing a bag of Capri Sun versus turning a spigot. Alongside learning to undo the spigot, you have to learn how to tighten the spigot. And I've gotten a lot better at it since then, but it's still hard for me. Like, I just don't know which muscles to use. Like, it's just my whole reflexive holding it thing just was based on years of doing different muscle sets, and now it's
So you hold. You hold! Go!
all in all, still better than the male configuration.
Whatever nightmares the future holds are dreams compared to what's behind me.
This is Friday, October 21st. I'm have a little muffle because I'm taking sublingual estrogen in my tongue, under the tongue. That's how it works. Comes out a little weird, but so I'm doing much better. I've been having like mood swings, lots of tension built up, just kind of getting released, but I think overall in a healthy way. When I was at the clinic, I was in an upright position for so long that the oxycodone, I think it is, started having a weird effect on me, and I started feeling faint. My mother needed to help me out. Like, I was literally seeing stars, and there's fortunately a bench for people to rest near the door, so I sat down, and Mom brought the car over to the entrance, and she helped me into the car. We came home. First we got a sandwich at Jimmy John's. Came home, had a sandwich, and I've been living off of crackers and Gatorade and just like little things, junk food, and even this sandwich. I got vegetarian with provolone, and even this sandwich, this tiny little thing, was just so good. Like, so good that I got all the nutrients of the veggies. But onions kind of hit me pretty hard, so I had to kind of scrape off the onions. System's just not in a good state where it can handle spicy food, even on the order of onions. An important context to this is that I'm a spice lover. I usually look for the hottest stuff, and I couldn't handle onions. So I got rid of the onions and was able to enjoy this nutritious kind of salad thing. But the oxycodone had done such a number on me that I actually, I felt like such a severe stomach issue. Like, I knew I needed to eat starches, like the bread, to absorb acidity in the stomach. But the oxycodone was so severe that I needed to lie down. So I was like doing this negotiation between eating a little of the sandwich, then lying down for a while, then going back to eat the sandwich, lie down for a while. Yeah, I have to eventually got the sandwich eaten, and it was good. It's a good thing overall, this surgery, this whole thing, but it is hard on my system. After a lot of practice walking across the room, I was able to get enough endurance that I was able to go on a walk across this little bridge where it's like traffic on one side and this nice river on the other side. It's an interesting contrast too. You've got the urban noise and then a nice quiet natural scene with these ducks, and it's pretty, and there's also the urban crap. Ran across an interesting thing where it looks like kids or bored adults throw coins off the bridge and onto the top of this lamppost. Yeah, that's an interesting sport. It's like the Spokane version of the gum wall in Seattle. Less fun?
I ran across some graffiti that I'm pretty sure was like nodding to white supremacism.
Fuck off, Hitler.
And we might call this foreshadowing for something that happened on the trip home. Fun, fun, fun. So October 26th was the Intersex Day of Visibility, where intersex people post online, hey, I'm intersex, and try to bring awareness to the fact that intersex people do exist. It's not just a wacky abstract stereotype about the hermaphrodite. You know, like Weird Al uses that figure as just kind of a joke a couple times.
So finally I go over and I open the door, and just as I suspected, it's some big fat hermaphrodite with a flock of seagulls haircut and only one nostril. Oh man, I hate it when I'm right.
But no, intersex people are real. They make long vlogs about their trips to go get vaginoplasties. So to celebrate, we went to Perkins. I got golden waffles and poured berry syrup in the center to emulate the intersex flag. As much as this vaginoplasty thing is a trans thing, it's also an intersex thing. The authorization forms for the insurance even call it intersex male to female surgery. This isn't just like trivia about me. This is a big part of my identity, and it's a big part of like why I was even there.
For many decades, the standard of care for intersex newborns included surgical procedures to make them look as typically female or typically male as possible.
Some doctors tell parents that these surgeries will make their child's body look like a typical boy or a typical girl. But these surgeries can have devastating consequences for the kids that can last a lifetime.
So here's what the big thrust of the intersex political movement is. It's trying to end non-consensual intersex surgery on infants. Basically, the baby is born with sex organ that could be a clitoris if it's small enough, could be a penis if it's large enough, and if it falls into this mid-range where it's considered ambiguous genitalia, they will do an automatic vaginoplasty to turn the ambiguous genitalia into what is definitely female, using the crude phrase, it's easier to dig a hole than build a pole. So they'll basically force these infants to grow up as girls, and in a lot of cases, that is forcing gender dysphoria on them. They could identify as male or non-binary. And the way that it's forced on them by society, by doctors, and parents who just don't want to consider that their kids might be something other than the binary. What intersex activist Dr. Orr calls compulsory dieeticism. And the fact that I got this authorization to get the vaginoplasty that is called intersex surgery, male to female, fits into that. It's something that I needed to do for myself because I'm trans, but it's also something that the system allows more because it is committed to dieticizing intersex people. And it's like, I'm grateful that I get to have my vaginoplasty, but at the same time, I'm kind of freaked out that it's allowed because of this larger problem. And just so we're clear, the transphobes who freak out about the mutilation of children, in the sense that they don't understand that children allowed to identify as a gender that they're not assigned at birth, that means just fulfilling the role as opposed to immediately getting surgery. They freak out about this whole thing about trans people transing the youth and forcing gender mutilation on them. Those people make exceptions in their ban of transgender healthcare to allow for compulsory dieeticism, to force intersex babies to be trans. It's totally incoherent. It's just, those people freak me out, so we're gonna use force to impose that they not be in my face.
If a lot of people love each other, the world would be a better place to live.
Ultimately, the thing that separates my vaginoplasty from the compulsory diaeticism is choice. I get to choose it. And the intersex people who have that forced on them, they have choice taken away from them, and they should be allowed to choose when they're old enough to consent to it, just like any other trans people, who I also suspect to be intersex people. You know, trans issues and intersex issues are pretty interlinked, two sides of the same coin. I don't like that compulsory dieteticism exists, but at the same time, me getting to choose what configuration I want is an expression of intersex liberation. On October 27th, I went to Stiller Aesthetics for one last appointment.
So this is October 27th. I just had my last appointment with the doctor. Basically, we're been clear to go home. Everything seems like it's healing fine. It's on the right track. It's exciting. I'm on track for the next surgery. They're going to submit authorization in a few weeks, and as things are looking like, I'll be able to get the second stage vaginoplasty in about 6 to 8 months, I think, and yeah, looking forward to that.
As it would turn out, the surgery has been moved to 2024. That's bureaucracy. We ended up donating most of our food to the local food bank and headed back home.
We're heading on the highway, heading home.
And, as promised, here are the Nazis. Yeah, okay, so emboldened by Kanye West's very overt anti-Semitic comments, there were these neo-Nazis who started holding up sandwich boards displaying this anti-Semitic rhetoric in highways. This was reported in California, and I was kind of vaguely aware of it happening in California. And it also happened in Moses Lake, Washington. As we're driving through, there are these Nazis standing on the overhead bridge spanning the highway, holding these signs, saying stuff like that Jews are the descendants of Satan. And it seems probable that they're the Aryan Freedom Network, a Texas-based white supremacist group that in January would be caught distributing anti-Semitic white supremacist literature in Moses Lake. A news article reporting on this draws a connection to the reported neo-Nazis demonstrating on the bridge over the highway back in October 2022. So yeah, Nazis. Fun.
Fuck off, Hitler.
So this trip was important to me, and I think that it was important to do. I'm very glad that I've done it, but I feel this tension. Like, we definitely picked a good time to do it before the far-right problem gets worse. Starting with the truck stop, there's that antagonism towards people just wearing masks. And in my case, like, I needed to wear a mask because I had surgery, and like, that was a possibility, but it's turned into a culture war thing. These people who would get antagonistic towards people wearing masks probably would get antagonistic towards LGBT folks, like certain far-right extremists would. And then there's the probable neo-Nazi graffiti in Spokane, the actual neo-Nazis demonstrating on the bridge. Yeah. Then there's DeSantis in Florida leading this crusade against trans people. DeSantis is now campaigning for presidency. If the backlash to Joe Biden results in a conservative president, it might be DeSantis, and he might issue some federal mandate restricting transgender health care, in which case I definitely need to get this surgery taken care of before that happens. So yeah, it's a very good time before the window closes.
Viene una tormenta!
What did he just say?
He said there's a storm coming in.
I know.
But that's a problem for another day. After like 3 hours driving, we finally made it back home. We unloaded the car and finally got to resting in a comfortable environment in our house where we didn't have to live in the same room and get on each other's nerves. It's now been over 6 months since the surgery. I've gotten much better. I think that I'm fully recovered at this point. And I'm looking forward to my next surgery in 2024. I'm still having difficulty with the bathroom issues, but that's a very minor problem compared to the gender dysphoria. It's a minor hurdle. I'll be fine. Even if I have it for the rest of my life, I don't really care. As ailments go, it's nothing compared to gender dysphoria. Overall, my emotional well-being is through the roof. I can only imagine it's going to get better from here. All I can do now is say thank you. Thank you to Mom for your emotional and physical support. And thank you to Dr. Stiller for making the magic happen. My life will be forever bettered by it.
When will they ever learn? Where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young men gone? Gone to soldier everyone when